Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. This is Tony Ingram, your host, and the date this is being recorded is October 17th, 2012, our 24th episode in this series. And we've got some interesting things to do today. We're going to go to some parks like we always do. And today we're going to feature Fillmore Glen State Park. And before we do that, though, I want to show you a picture of fall foliage. Took this yesterday at Buttermilk Falls State Park, and we're not having a lot of red colors this year. It's been a dry year. The trees have turned a little bit early, and the red colors are really dependent on the weather, pretty much. Sunny weather, cool weather. We've been having some of that, so we get a little bit. But in any case, this is a hickory tree, most of it. There is a sugar maple leaf or two in there. And they never turn red. They turn yellow like this because of the presence of fancy chemicals called anthocyanins. They are not anthocyanins, I'm sorry, xanthophylls. Anthocyanins are the things that sometimes turn red. Xanthophylls, and they never turn red. The carotenes are responsible also for yellow colors, particularly in sugar maple leaves and so forth. And then there are anthocyanins I mentioned, which are colors that are produced by the breakdown products of the leaf in the fall and hit by sunlight. And it's pretty complex, I guess, and it's very variable and dependent on a number of conditions. So anyway, go out there and enjoy those fall colors. They'll be going on for a while, as you know. So today we're going to go to Fillmore Glen State Park. Fillmore Glen State Park. Now, people that live around Ithaca are very familiar with our gorges, and they love our gorges, but where is Fillmore Glen? A lot of people have not been to Fillmore Glen. Well, you can't get there in Ithaca. You got to go over, actually up and over to Cayuga County, and just south of the next Finger Lake to the east, which is Owasco Lake, which is in the upper center of this picture here in Cayuga County map. And then you notice that blue arrow in lower center is pointing towards a weird green squiggly structure there with the left hand upper left extension of that green squiggly stuff is Fillmore Glen State Park, and then the rest of that strange shape is Summerhill State Forest. So anyway, let's go take a look at Fillmore Glen State Park. If you come into the park, this is a gorge on the east side of the valley, just at the southern edge of the village of Moravia. And you come into this nice pavilion, which was a Depression era thing. There was a Civilian Conservation Corps camp in the park. They probably built this building back in the 1930s. And it's a lovely building. And it has a room in it called the Fillmore Room, which is named after this guy, Millard Fillmore. Millard Fillmore, a little bit of information about him. He actually was the 13th President of the United States. Was born on January 7th, 1800, and lived till March 8th, 1874. And he was the last member of the Whig Party to hold the office of president. As Zachary Taylor's vice president, he assumed the presidency after Taylor's unexpected death. So in the park, there is right near this shelter area, this picnic pavilion, is this little structure which is called the Fillmore Cabin, and it represents the house, the kind of house that Millard Fillmore was born in. Now, a lot of people say Abraham Lincoln was the first log cabin president. Millard Fillmore was the first log cabin president. This is not the house, the log house that he was built in, but one of similar vintage that was transported to the park, I think in the 1960s. And then inside there's a little museum. You can look through plexiglass and see some household items that date from the era of Fillmore's early childhood, tables and so forth, and bunks. So that's kind of fun to see. And so Millard Fillmore, he was born just a few miles from the park, about 5 miles from the park. If you go up, remember that map I was showing you here? Let's see. You go up towards the, I think, when you see that number to the right of that squiggly mess there is in the lower right. I think it's number 12. I don't think that indicates that, but but that's about where his birth site is. And this is the Millard Fillmore Historic Trail. And then here's a memorial to him under a shelter at his approximate birth site. And then here is a historic sign. Millard Fillmore, 13th President of the United States, was born in a log cabin in the adjacent field, January 7th, 1800. So not only was the first log cabin president, but he was the first president born in the 19th century. So Millard Fillmore. Something else. I got a few other little things to say about him. Okay. In the history of the U.S. presidency, Fillmore inaugurates a new era. All previous presidents had acquired substantial personal fortunes either through inheritance or marriage, or in Martin Van Buren's case, through work as an attorney. Fillmore was the first of a long line of late 19th century chief executives, mostly lawyers, who acquired only modest wealth during their lives, were, quote, distinctly middle class, and who spent most of their careers in public service. So interesting background there compared to some of the other presidents. Fillmore opposed the proposal to keep slavery out of the territories annexed during the Mexican-American War in order to appease the South, and so supported the Compromise of 1850, which he signed, including the Fugitive Slave Act, sometimes known as the Bloodhound Law, which was part of the Compromise. On the foreign policy front, he furthered the rising trade with Japan and clashed with the French over Napoleon III's attempt to annex Hawaii, with the French and British over the attempt of Narciso Lopez to invade Cuba. After his presidency, he joined the Know Nothing movement. Throughout the Civil War, he opposed President Abraham Lincoln, and during Reconstruction supported President Andrew Johnson. He is consistently included in the bottom 10 of historical rankings of presidents of the United States. Fillmore co-founded the University of Buffalo and helped found the Buffalo Historical Society and Buffalo General Hospital after he grew up and he was an apprentice and so forth in the Moravia area. He did move to Buffalo, and that's where he had his career before he became, and before and after he was president. So we'll read a little bit more about Fillmore here. Okay, this is funny. The myth that Fillmore installed the White House's first bathtub was started by H.L. Mencken, who was a journalist, a commentator, in a joke column published on December 28, 1917, in the New York Evening Mail, so about a century ago. And so anyway, this mythology about Fillmore having put the first bathtub in the White House resulted in a big celebration every year in the last weekend of July in the village of Moravia, which is right next to the park. They have Fillmore Days, and it's 2-3 days of fun. And the high point of Fillmore Days is the bathtub races, where there are teams from all over, hospital auxiliary groups, ambulance squads, all fire departments, all different groups get together, and they take these old cast iron bathtubs, put them on angle iron frames with casters underneath them, and they paddle them with long-handled plumber's helpers, 2 in the bathtub and 1 guy pushing in the back. There's even a motorcycle club from New Jersey that used to enter every year. I don't know if they still do. I haven't been down there to see that in recent years, but it's a riot, the bathtub races. So let's see. I'll say a little bit more about that. On December 28, 1917, an article entitled "The Neglected Anniversary" by H.L. Mencken was published in the New York Evening Mail. It claimed that the bathtub had been introduced into the United States as recently as 1842, the first ones having been made of mahogany lined with lead. The article went on to describe how the introduction of the bathtub initially was greatly discussed and opposed until President Millard Fillmore had a bathtub installed in the White House in 1850, making the invention more broadly acceptable. The article was entirely false, but was still being widely quoted as fact years later, even as recently as the January 2008, when a Kia TV ad referenced the story with no mention of its fictional nature. The success of this idle hoax, Mencken wrote in 1949, done in time of war when more serious writing was impossible, vastly astonished me. It was taken gravely by a great many other newspapers and presently made its way into medical literature and into standard reference books. It had, of course, no truth in it whatsoever, and I more than once confessed publicly that it was only a jocosity. Scarcely a month goes by that I do not find the substance of it reprinted, not as foolishness, but as fact, and not only in newspapers, but in official documents and other works of the highest pretensions. So that's some fun. Let's see, get back to my original screen here. But let's go see the park. As I mentioned, the pavilion is there. If you walk just behind the pavilion, you'll see this big field, and there is Fillmore Glen. And you walk up to the back of what this field is here, you'll find this boulder with a plaque. I seem to like brass plaques and bronze plaques, I guess I should say. This one is to Dr. Charles Atwood, who was a local physician who advocated for the formation of Fillmore Glen State Park in the 1920s. He was an amateur botanist, and Fillmore Glen, he felt, should be preserved because of its very rich botanical diversity. So there's a plaque to him there. Now, that park, I believe, was created in 1828, and that's also the year he passed away. So I don't know if he actually got to see it. And just to the next to this boulder and plaque to your left is this amazing stone arch bridge over Dry Creek, which is the stream that has eroded, has cut Fillmore Glen. You walk across that bridge, and you get to the other side, and you see this sign that says the cow sheds, and you can see a waterfall in the back there. And we'll pass a pretty yellow birch tree on our way, going back in there, and here you come to the cow sheds. The cow sheds are obviously a waterfall and sort of an amphitheater there, but up on the left is a ledge, a limestone ledge. It's actually Tully limestone, which is the same formation, the same kind of limestone that forms the base of Cayuga Gorge. So it's a very extensive geologic formation in central New York. But it's called the cow sheds because it said before the days of the park, in the hot summer days, cows would wander up into there and cool off. And then another story, which is less likely, is that cattle rustlers brought their cattle up there to hide them. I think the 401 one is more likely. Not a lot of water going over the falls these days, but here's what it looked like almost a year ago on Thanksgiving weekend. And it was quite pretty then. So Fillmore Glen's a lovely place. You go back over that bridge to get farther up the Glen. You can't walk past this waterfall, so you have to go back over that footbridge, and you go up this long staircase up to the Gorge Trail and also the South Rim Trail, and you go in the gorge there. So what we're going to do is actually, I'm going to show you a video. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you a video of being in the gorge here. Let me see, get up here. It's going to, we'll go up to the upper end of the park, or up the end of the gorge anyway. Park continues on somewhat. And there is a dam, an old dam there. I think that was built during the Depression. And behind it is a small lake. And this is pretty much where the trails begin. The South Rim Trail and the North Rim Trail and the Gorge Trail go down from there. Most people don't walk up this far, but we will go up there. My video actually starts about 2/3 of the way up the gorge, and we're gonna follow the water down to back down to the cow sheds. So just take a minute to get that video up for us here. Okay. Okay. So you can see that's a beautiful park. You might have noticed some of those bridges there. I don't know how many bridges, maybe as many as 10 bridges or so that cross back and forth over the trail and over the stream. I mean, the trail crosses the stream. Um, so going up to Fillmore Glen, it's actually as big as the other gorge parks we have in the area, like Robert Treman or Cayuga Falls. In fact, it has more acreage than some of those. So I really recommend it. They'll keep the gorge open as long as the winter weather holds off. I was there Thanksgiving weekend last year, and where I had that picture of the more full waterfall I took. So I love Fillmore Glen. I want to get there more often. It's great for wildflowers in the spring and mushrooms in late summer, and just a lush place. So not a lot of people, not a lot of crowds, a small campground, a few cabins, a very small swimming area. So a lovely park. Okay, well, we're going to do a different thing now. We're going to go out on Cayuga Lake with the MV handle of Tia Harrow Tours and Floating Classroom. And just this was last month, a special 2-hour trip we took out on the lake in the late afternoon, and show you a few pictures of things out there. So it was a lovely day. You can see the cliffs along the eastern shore. Some beautiful clouds over that. It's another scene here looking back towards Ithaca now. On the left-hand side of the picture, you can see a couple of the 2 lighthouses. And they're actually sort of offset because we're looking from the northwest. Normally, the red lighthouse, when you look at it, will be on the right-hand side if you're looking from the lake, and the white lighthouse will be on the left-hand side. But since we're looking from the northwest, it's kind of got them reversed. But see what else we got here. Nice view up on South Hill with the Ithaca College's towers. It's one of the best places to get views of South Hill and Ithaca College is from the lake itself. And of course up there on the towers is one of the best places to get the view of the lake. So when you come around to go back into the channel of Cayuga Inlet, when you've been out on the lake, it gets very shallow out there. So it's good to hang around this piling, which is in about 10 feet of water. It's has a light on top of it, obviously, for boats at night to help them find the channel to get back into the inlet safely. Here we go again. Again, we're still coming on from the northwest, coming on to the lighthouses. There's the piling and the light again. A couple of other shots of it. This one with East Hill on the left. And then a view of looks like the Cornell skyline up there, and Stewart Park in the lower part of the picture, in the lower center picture. Nice picture of Stewart Park. So, just nice views of the lake. But as we were coming back, the crew teams, college crew teams were out on the lake, and I think these were from Ithaca College. And the lake was still, and this is the time of day in the fall, particularly, that they go out and practice on the lake. There's a coach's boat there, and pretty cool stuff. Fun to watch them. Rowers. And then with the lowering sun, I got some nice shots of them crossing the sun's glint on the water. So that was really pretty. Right in it. And right through it. Looking back as we head into Cayuga Inlet, going back to our home dock, passing one of the lighthouses, the one on the eastern part of the mouth of Cayuga Inlet at the end of the long jetty there. I'd like to call that the Leaning Tower of Ithaca. Built about 1899 along with the rest of that wall, and is an important landmark for boats to find the inlet, because if you're in any sort of boat that has any draw to it, or has a low bottom or something in the water, it could you could run aground on either side of these jetties. Now the other jetty there you see going out to the other lighthouse has birds on it, and that one is just below or just at the water line. I guess the waves can pass over it, so there's lights on it to make sure boats can see it. Heading back in. This is going by the Cornell biological station. It's a little piece of remnant wetland, floodplain forest, swamp forest. It's just at the end of the waterfront there, passing some of the rowers. Again, looking at the big trees, big willows and big cottonwoods. This is what originally Ithaca looked like, was mostly these big, tall cottonwood trees and willow trees and silver maples in a basically a wetland forest or swamp, and then and also marshlands. Here's the side of the handle as we head back in, and you get a good view of the Cornell skyline. You can see that pretty well from Cass Park. And there's the top of Ithaca Falls behind all those poles. But when we do our boat tours, I like to point that out to people. Johnson's Marina. Again, Cornell from the water. It's another view of Ithaca Falls back in there in Fall Creek Gorge. Just the top of it. Mostly you just see the cliff. This is right next to the Ithaca Farmers Market, just past the mouth of Cascadilla Creek. There's the dock at the Ithaca's Farmers Market. So the Tia Tours, which runs its tours from the Farmers Market on the weekends, will be operating through the end of October, through the last weekend of October, every Saturday and Sunday. They have at least 2 tours. They also have eco tours on Sunday afternoon. So you can go on their website, tiajarotours.com, and find links for all of that information. This is the Cornell Crew Boathouse. And this is the new one that's been built for Ithaca College. Finally, we head up, well, I guess what has become the mouth of 6 Mile Creek. It used to be the route of Cayuga Inlet by the Ithaca Boating Center. Some nice reflections in the water. Okay, so nice day on Cayuga Lake. There's still a few more to go out there. We're going to take a quick trip over to Sweetler Preserve, Lick Brook on South Hill, just southwest of Buttermilk Falls on the same slope there. We don't have a lot of time left, so we'll just try to look through these things. But that's the location of some pretty big waterfalls in Lick Brook Gorge, Lick Brook Glen. It's not a lot of water in it now, but it's a very high waterfall. I think it's over 150 feet high. This is what it looks like when there's a little bit more water on it. And a picture of a wildflower growing along the south-facing rim of that gorge. There's a lot of asters out. This is a kind of aster. This particular one might be arrow-leaved aster, or Aster sagitifolius, which means arrow-leaved. So I think that's what it is. There are a lot of different species of asters out this time of year, so don't quote me on that necessarily, but go out and enjoy them. There's a lot of wildflowers in the woods and in the fields right now. And we'll take one little trip over to Fall Creek. This is looking from the Stewart Avenue Bridge upstream through the fence, looking down to the rim of the falls. I mean, to the rim, yeah, the top of the falls. Looking from the side, and then of course from the bottom of the waterfalls was taken last month. Cascadilla Glen from the College Avenue Bridge. Now we're going to go back to Ithaca Falls. I do have a short video that I'll be able to show you some of in just a moment. Okay, well, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next week.